Welcome back, I'm Tedward, and today we're driving my 2010 E92 M3, and you might be wondering why you haven't seen this car on the channel for quite some time, despite being my daily driver. But actually, I haven't seen this car in quite some time because it's been littered with nuanced, annoying problems that come with 100,000-mile BMW ownership. Now, for some of you, this video may be just for entertainment purposes while I discuss the misery of owning this car and putting 1,000 miles a month on it. Some of you might be troubleshooting your own issues that are similar to mine, so I'm going to just try to get through each failure point and each struggle that I've been through on this car in sections. So that way, if you are trying to figure out what's wrong with your car and you're not getting good answers, or replacing sensors isn't fixing the problem you thought it would, maybe I can help. Maybe this is going to be some informative stuff for you. So anyway, it's very cold out today. I've got my Vredestein Windtrack Pro tires on. We'll get to that in a minute too, but let's jump in, start it up, and go for a drive and talk about why I haven't seen this car in so long. And you'll notice when this starts up, no more lights. In fact, yes, I can put my handbrake down and that finally goes away. We're going to talk about that too. So let's start off with the two most troublesome issues. I had a driveline vibration and an oil level sensor that would not read, which seems simple, it was not. So let's start with the driveline vibration. Under certain conditions, I was noticing that there was a lot of vibrations, and it wasn't just because of crappy Massachusetts roads. I'm on the highway on smooth roads, and I'm getting all these annoying vibrations. And in reverse, I'm getting the cowbell clunk. That's pretty simple. It gives you the indication that there's an issue with the drive shaft. Now, there's a two-piece drive shaft. There's a U-joint in the middle, and that U-joint, over time and stress and wear, will start to get loose. You get a little clunk to it. And that's going to start to cause some vibrations. Put this heated seat down a little bit. Now, not a big deal, except for the fact that it's not a serviceable part. So that means you've got to send it out to a special drive shaft remanufacturer to be rebuilt, or simply buy a new drive shaft. Now, we chose to send it out because it's fairly cheap. It's under $500 to essentially rebuild the drive shaft, and then they clean it up, they paint it, they make it look nice, and they rebalance it. Except that when I got the car back with the newly rebalanced drive shaft, I had a new vibration, a different vibration. It did fix one thing though, because previous to this rebuild, oh my goodness, this car really just wants to be in 7th gear. Previous to the rebuild, downshifts were clunky, and honestly, I was thinking, wow, have my motor mounts already failed me? Because when I did the rod bearings, we also did the motor mounts, and it made shifting a lot smoother because there was less flexibility in the powertrain. But over time, I started to notice I was getting a thunk with the downshifts on this DCT. When the rebuilt drive shaft came back, that was gone. So that slack in that U-joint was enough to cause a thunk on a downshift. With the rebuilt drive shaft completely gone, except for the fact that at about 65 and above, the car was vibrating enough to really cause concern. Now, I think normal people who aren't car enthusiasts, would have just lived with this. They would have just said, yep, that's just the way my car drives. But knowing that my car used to not vibrate like this drove me absolutely bonkers. And I was also fully aware that leaving a vibration like this could do damage down the road, meaning that if I have a rotating drive shaft that is not balanced correctly, that means that it's vibrating the input shaft of the differential, which could eventually cause some damage there and cost a lot of money. So I wasn't prepared to just let it slide. So I brought it back. Wild Motorsport has been dealing with all this, and they confirmed it. They said, yeah, you're right. This is not balanced properly. And we put it up on a lift and took a look at it, and you could genuinely just feel it vibrating on the differential. So they're going through a warranty claim with that, except you got to remember, this is my daily driver. Pulling a drive shaft, sending it out to the shop, the install time, all of these things are not quick. This isn't like an hour turnaround. This is very frustrating stuff to deal with. So I'm without a car. This is why I've been daily driving my friend's Maybach. That wasn't just for fun, although it was entertaining. That was actually due to necessity. I had a Maybach loaner because I needed it. So in the meantime, they managed to find me a loaner drive shaft, which is currently what I'm on. I'm actually not on the rebuilt drive shaft right now. I'm on a loaner drive shaft out of a total D92, And thankfully, it's still, you know, it's not great. It's definitely used. It has different vibrations, but on the highway, it doesn't rattle my teeth or make me feel like I'm, you know, in a paint mixer at Home Depot. That's not where I want to be. Okay, next up, the oil level sensor. So if you don't know, it's calculating right now. S65s, the engine, and the E92 and E90, E93 M3, they do not have dipsticks. There is no dipstick in this car, so you cannot check the oil level without the computer. You need to go through this menu. And that oil level sensor is located, oh God, these roads are miserable. That oil level sensor is located in the oil pan. It goes up from the bottom up, which means that if you were to replace this sensor, it's not a quick, oh, we'll just pop it out and pop a new one in. You're doing an oil change because you're gonna have to take all that oil out, unless you're really clever and try to tie a vacuum to the engine and hold it. It's not gonna work, all right? Just don't even bother. You probably damage something else. Oh, hello. Is that it's a 1LE. That's pretty sick. Now, I've had a failed oil level sensor in the past, and it was very simple. I said, okay, FCP Euro, I would like one oil sensor, please. Did an oil change, popped the new sensor in, and just like that, just like magic, there it was, functioning as normal, not a problem. Well, 3,000 miles later, it fails. I lost my oil level, and the problem isn't just that you don't know how much oil is in the engine, which I'm not so concerned about because I know I put the appropriate amount of oil in. The problem is it throws a check engine light. And in Massachusetts, I can't get an inspection sticker, which makes my car legally roadworthy, without that check engine light being off. This is a big deal for me. I like to keep my cars legal. I've got catalytic converters on my cars. I've got front plates, okay? I don't need excess trouble from the law beyond some enthusiastic driving. I don't want to be picked out of a lineup and nailed for whatever reason. And the other thing is that in Massachusetts, if you have an invalid or expired inspection sticker, they can give you points on your license. So it's no longer just, oh, I'll pay the fine, don't worry about it. Like, you're actually going to suffer some consequences down the line. So this is becoming a big problem because I replaced the sensor. This is the only trick I had up my sleeve, replace the sensor and hope for the best. Did not solve my problem. Now I'm also getting a code that said alternator communication error. This is new, and I data logged. I tried to figure out what was going on. My car was always starting. I never had any issues, and it showed that I was running the appropriate amount of power. The amount of power was coming out of the alternator. Everything seemed fine. So I was very confused on what was going on here. Now, after a lot of deliberation and trial and error at Wild Motorsport, we finally just replaced the alternator. And that solved the problem. I guess the alternator signal is some funky digital signal that, while still functioning as an alternator, charging my battery, making my car function and drive, it failed to allow this sensor to work. Very, very frustrating, and apparently in the wiring diagram, this sensor, the thermostat, and the alternator are all very closely tied together. Now, these two problems should have been seemingly very simple. You have a drive shaft that's got an issue, you rebuild it or replace it. You've got an oil level sensor that doesn't work, you replace it, no big deal. No, unfortunately, the problem with these cars is they're so complicated and they're so tightly built that if anything is wrong or not perfect, they just fail. And it's very frustrating because what I want in a daily driver is a car that I can jump in every day and essentially not think about. Now, when I bought this car, I bought it when I was only driving about 4,000 or 5,000 miles per year. I used to work for a company that sent me all over the world, so I was never home. I was out of the country 2-3 weeks a month. And then that changed. And now I drive all the time. I drive 10,000 to 15,000 miles a year in this car. And that's really changing the use case for me in this car. We'll go nice and slow by this puppy. He looks like he's young and wants to run at cars. Okay. And while it is somewhat expensive to deal with these issues, that's actually less of the problem. The problem is the downtime, because when this car is down, I'm forced to drive other cars that aren't my daily driver. I'm forced into cars that I don't want to be putting these kind of daily miles on, or suffering the risk of an accident. You know, I don't want my M5 to get hit on 128 in rush hour traffic. That's so stupid. That's what this car is for. Another good doggo. Hello, puppy. other issue with this car was the thermostat. You can see right now, it's running dead in the middle. It's running just about 210 degrees. This is fantastic. I'm very excited about this because for a long time, this car was always running on the cool side and never so cold that it caused me massive concern, but cool enough that I knew that it was stuck partially open. A new thermostat really did the trick, and now it runs much better, and I'm getting noticeably better fuel economy. I'm getting like 1 to 2 miles per gallon better, which on an E92 M3, that's as much as you can dream about. You'll also notice that there's no brake light in the center of the dash because we replaced the badware sensors. We tied them up and stuffed them away. They're not actually functional, but that makes me so happy. I don't have to stare at that stupid brake light every day I get in the car. Now, at the end of the day, none of these issues are full deal breakers for the car, except for the fact that when I could not figure out how to get that check engine light to go off, that's actually an issue. That's me being like, hey, can I sell this car if I need to sell this car? Because I don't want to sell a car that I wouldn't buy. I don't want to sell a car to somebody and say, yeah, it's got these problems, go figure it out. Like, if it's a known issue, your car needs a brake job or tires or something, sure, not a big deal. I don't want to sell a car that has an electrical issue that I can't solve myself, that I've been trying to solve. So that was actually a pretty severe thing for me, and replacing the alternator and having that fix come through was a big deal. That made me feel like, okay, we're going to be in business. Now, am I going to sell this car? Most likely, yes. And it's not because it's a bad car. It's because my use case for a daily driver has changed. I think an E92 M3 is great for somebody who needs a fun weekend car, or a car that they're going to drive maybe 5,000 to 10,000 a year maximum. But I'm definitely going above that, and I can't afford to have the downtime that this car requires to operate normally. So what I am going to do is I'm going to go out and get a new daily driver. I'm going to get a 2022 Honda Civic SI. Now, I know I'm announcing this a little early. I've not put money down on this. My dealer has this thing coming in. We're going to go figure it all out, and it looks like a pretty optimistic thing. But, you know, I know a lot of people aren't going to talk about things they're going to do until it's literally in their driveway and paid for. Why am I going to hide this from you? I'm excited about it. I'm excited about having a manual 6-speed daily driver. I'm excited about having a car that gets 37 miles per gallon on the highway, because, guys, that's where most of my driving takes place. You got to remember, I'm driving 3 cars a week. I'm out driving all over the place, hunting down cars at dealerships and fan cars and all this stuff. I've got to get to those cars. This is not the best way to get to them. And although this car has been so phenomenal to me, I've been able to spend a lot of time on track, I've been able to do some road trips, I don't know that this is the answer for the next 50 or 100,000 miles of my life. And also, it's caused me so much stress, not because the car has ever been like inoperable, but because sometimes when it has problems, I don't have the patience to solve them. So that's as full an update as I can give you on this M3. It runs strong. I have done the maintenance. I have kept up with it. But once in a while, these cars just throw things at you that will drive you absolutely mad. And you've got to be prepared for it. And if your stress levels can't cope, then you're going to have problems. Now, one of the reasons I'm really excited about this Honda coming in is because it doesn't do the things that this car does. This car is really a jack of all trades. It's not great at anything in particular. I mean, sure, it's a fun track car, but it's heavy. But one of the reasons that I'm excited about the Honda is that it's going to force me to drive my 911 more. It's going to force me to drive the M5 more. I will miss 8,500 RPM though, because this S65 is magical. Oh my goodness. This sounds insane. This never gets old. I love this car. I do. I love this car. Maybe I'll just keep it, strip it, and make it a track car. All right, guys. That's the update. That's the deal. I hope that this is at least entertaining to watch my stress levels come down as my car starts to function again, or help your stress levels come down if you're dealing with similar issues and you can't get the dang oil sensor to read properly and you need to figure out, well, I've replaced it, it's not working, and I can't pass the state inspection. there you go. Those are the answers. But the good news is that car is not coming until March or April at the earliest. So that means we're going to have winter driving in the M3 as normal. So I'm looking forward to a bunch of slidey, drifty snow stuff with my Vredestein Windtrack Pro tires. And hopefully not getting stuck anywhere that costs me too much money to get extracted from. Don't forget to respect the drive, and I'll see you in the next one.